The corridor was too quiet for a hospital at night. No alarms, no shouting, just the low hum of fluorescent lights and the sound of someone breathing too fast. Nurse Lena Carter stood at the medication cart, head down, counting syringes while security argued in whispers near the ward doors. They spoke over her, around her, like she was furniture. Just another night nurse, just another pair of hands. Then the doors at the far end slammed open. A man stumbled in, bleeding, shouting a name no one in the ward recognized. Phones went dead, radios crackled once, then silence. The charge nurse froze. Security hesitated. Lena didn't raise her voice. She didn't look for permission. She simply spoke, and people listened. They would understand later why. But by then the ward was already locked down. The night shift settled into the hospital the way fog settles into a valley, slow, soft and heavy. Fluorescent lights hummed above polished floors. Monitors glowed in patient rooms, steady green lines tracing fragile promises. Somewhere down the hall, a cart rolled past, its wheels squeaking once before disappearing into silence. She stood at bed 12, checking and 4-line. Her movements were precise, no wasted motion. She adjusted the drip rate, watched the chamber long enough to confirm flow, then glanced at the monitor without changing her expression. Heart rate stable, oxygen acceptable, blood pressure holding. The patient slept through it. She noted the numbers on her clipboard, her handwriting small and neat, then replaced the pen in the same pocket she always used. Left side, easy reach, habit, around her. The ward breathed. 2 nurses talked quietly at the station, their voices low, tired. A resident leaned against the wall, scrolling through his phone, eyes red from a double shift. An orderly passed carrying fresh linens, nodding to her without stopping. No one lingered on her. She was just another nurse on nights. Early 40s, hair pulled back tight, scrubs plain and unadorned. No jewelry beyond a watch with a scratched face. A badge clipped high, turned slightly inward from years of movement. She preferred it that way. At the far end of the corridor, the elevator doors opened with a soft chime. Footsteps followed, heavier than hospital staff. Deliberate, she heard them before she saw them. 2 men stepped out, jackets dark, posture rigid. Not hospital security. Their shoes were wrong for it, too solid, too clean. One scanned left, then right, his eyes moving ahead of his body. The other touched his earpiece, without thinking. Federal. They stopped near the nurse's station, flashing badges quickly. The charge nurse stiffened, straightened her back, and nodded too many times. FBI. The word passed quietly, but it changed the temperature of the room. Conversations stopped. Phones disappeared. The resident put his device away and stood up. She watched from bed 12, not openly, just enough to register. 2 agents, no uniforms, one older, graying at the temples, jaw set like it had been clenched for years. The other younger, alert, eyes moving constantly, hand resting near his belt. They spoke with the charge nurse in low voices. She caught fragments as she moved closer, pushing an empty medication cart toward the supply room. Temporary holding, the older agent said. Just overnight. The charge nurse replied. Restricted access, the younger added. She passed them without slowing, eyes forward. Cartwheels whispering over the floor. Overnight holding meant one thing in a hospital like this. A detainee too unstable for transport, too valuable to leave unattended. Federal jurisdiction brought pressure. Pressure brought mistakes. She filed it away. Inside the supply room, she restocked syringes, counted saline bags, checked expiration dates without looking at the labels for long. Her mind stayed on the corridor, on the spacing of doors, the blind corners, the distance from the elevator to the trauma wing. She had walked these halls for years, not memorized, understood. When she returned, the agents were still there. The younger one paced slightly, unable to keep still. The older spoke into his phone, voice clipped. She paused near the station to update a chart, close enough to hear. Yes, medical clearance pending, he said. No, we'll manage access. Manage. She almost smiled. A monitor alarm chirped softly behind her. She turned, silenced it, adjusted the sensor, and waited until the numbers stabilized. The sound stopped. The ward exhaled. She noticed the younger agent watching her now. Not with suspicion. With curiosity. She met his eyes briefly, then looked away. Nothing confrontational, just acknowledgement. He didn't speak. Down the hall, a patient coughed, wet, deep. The sound carried. She looked up again, this time more openly. Bed 17, pulmonary complications. High risk if agitated. The coughing worsened. A nurse hurried past her, then stopped short as one of the agents stepped into the corridor without looking. "Sir," the nurse said. Startled, the agent didn't respond. He was focused on his earpiece. She moved between them smoothly, placing a hand on the cart, angling her body just enough to block the agent's path without touching him. "Patient needs space," she said quietly. The agent frowned. "We're federal. He needs oxygen," she replied, already stepping past, already ending the exchange. The nurse followed her lead without thinking, pushing the equipment through. The agent stood there for a moment, irritation flickering across his face, then stepped aside. She didn't look back. In bed 17, she adjusted the mask, spoke softly to the patient, waited until the coughing eased. She stayed longer than necessary, watched the breathing, counted the seconds. From the corner of her eye, she saw the older agent watching through the doorway, assessing. Good, she thought. Let him. When she finished, she washed her hands carefully, dried them, and returned to her rounds. Time passed. 15 minutes. 30. The ward settled again, but the tension didn't leave. It sat under the surface, subtle but persistent, like pressure behind the ears. She checked a crash cart as she passed, not because it was due, because it was there, everything in order. At the nurse's station, the charge nurse whispered urgently into the phone. "Yes, I understand. No, they didn't say how long. We're short-staffed already." The older agent approached, lowering his voice. "We'll need that wing cleared." The charge nurse swallowed. "Cleared how?" "Restricted," he said. "No unnecessary movement." She finished her charting and stepped closer, just enough to be included without inserting herself. "That wing houses post-op patients, the charge nurse said. "Some can't be moved." The agent's jaw tightened. "We'll adjust." Adjustments, without understanding, caused casualties. She had seen it before. Different buildings, different stakes, same outcome. She spoke before she consciously decided to. "Which rooms?" she asked. Both agents turned toward her. The younger one looked surprised. The older looked irritated. "Excuse me?" he said. She met his gaze calmly. "No challenge, no apology. Which rooms are you restricting?" There was a beat of silence. The ward seemed to listen. "That's not," the younger agent began. The older raised a hand, cutting him off. His eyes stayed on her. "Rooms 20 through 26. She nodded once. 23 is on a ventilator. You'll need clearance from respiratory if you plan to limit access. He frowned. "We don't plan to limit medical care. Access affects response time," she replied. Still calm. Still even. "You'll want a secondary route." The older agent studied her for a long moment, measuring tone, confidence. Not what he expected. "We'll handle it," he said finally. She didn't argue. She stepped back, returning to her work. But as she walked away, she adjusted her route, moving past rooms 21 and 22, casually checking doors, glancing at the ceiling cameras, noting which lights flickered slightly when the air system cycled. She made a mental map. Updated it. At the far end of the ward, she paused at a window overlooking the ambulance bay. 2 unmarked vehicles had pulled in. Engines still running. Drivers inside. Not standard procedure. Her watch ticked softly against her wrist. She felt it then. Not fear. Not excitement, recognition, whatever the Bai thought they were controlling. They were already behind it. She turned back toward the ward, her face composed, her pace unhurried. To everyone else, she was still just a nurse finishing her rounds on a quiet floor, but the night had shifted, and she was already moving ahead of it. The first irregularity was small enough to ignore. The medication scanner lagged when she signed out antibiotics for room 21. Just a second longer than usual. The screen froze, then caught up, displaying the correct patient ID and dosage. She waited anyway, counted 3 breaths. Watched the hallway reflected in the glass cabinet door. No one approaching, no raised voices, no alarms. She completed the scan and moved on. Systems failed in hospitals all the time. Old hardware, overloaded networks, night shift maintenance. Most staff learned to work around it. She had learned to question it. At the nurse's station, the younger FBI agent stood with his back to the wall, arms crossed, eyes tracking movement. He noticed her glance at the scanner. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "True enough." She checked her watch again. The unmarked vehicles were still idling outside. No one had exited. No one had left. That bothered her more than the scanner. She continued her rounds, moving deeper into the restricted wing. Rooms 20 through 26 were quieter than the rest of the floor. Curtains drawn, lights dimmed, patients sleeping or sedated. In room 23, the ventilator cycled steadily. She checked the settings without adjusting anything. The respiratory therapist would be back in 20 minutes. She made a note to herself. If access was delayed, those minutes would When she stepped back into the corridor, she noticed one of the security doors near the stairwell, standing slightly ajar. It should have been closed. She approached it slowly, her footsteps measured. The door led to a staff-only stairwell, alarmed and badge-locked. She tested it with 2 fingers. Unlocked. She didn't close it yet. Instead, she looked up. The camera above the door faced the opposite direction, covering the corridor but not the stairwell entrance. A blind spot. That was not an accident. She closed the door carefully until it latched. Listened for the alarm. Nothing. She turned and walked away without changing her pace. At the nurse's station, the charge nurse was arguing quietly with the older FBI agent. "I can't reroute staff without notice," she said. "We have protocols." The agent leaned in slightly. "We're past protocols." That sentence landed hard. She set her clipboard down and checked a patient chart that did not need checking. She listened. "We've secured the perimeter," the agent continued. "This is temporary. Temporary always stretched longer than promised." She saw the younger agent glance toward the stairwell door she had just closed. He frowned, then tapped his earpiece. "Door check on the west stairwell," he murmured. Good, she thought. At least one of them was paying attention. She moved away again, down a side corridor that led to storage and utilities. As she passed the supply alcove, she noticed a linen cart parked slightly out of alignment. The wheels were turned inward, locking it in place. Someone had positioned it deliberately. She adjusted it as if absent-mindedly, rolling it back into proper position. As she did, she felt the faint vibration of a phone inside the folded sheets. She froze for half a second. Then she kept moving. No reaction. No pause. She pushed the cart into the supply room and closed the door. Inside, she unfolded the top layer of linens just enough to confirm what she already knew. A phone. Powered on. No hospital inventory tag. She powered it off and placed it back exactly where it had been, folded the linens, returned the cart to the corridor. If she reported it now, it would cause noise. Noise would trigger movement. Movement would accelerate whatever was coming. She chose silence. Back at the station, the older agent had finished his call. His jaw was tighter now. The charge nurse looked pale. "Additional restrictions," he said. "Effective immediately." She stepped forward. "You'll bottleneck response," she said calmly. "If something goes wrong, you won't reach patients in time." He turned to her sharply. "And who are you?" "Nurse on duty," she replied. No emphasis, no challenge. He looked her up and down. Plain scrubs, no insignia, no visible authority. "We appreciate your concern," he said flat, "but this is federal." She nodded once and stepped back. She did not argue. She did not insist. Instead, she began making adjustments no one noticed. She quietly reassigned one nurse to the far end of the wing under the pretense of coverage. She asked an orderly to keep a gurney staged near the stairwell in case respiratory needs it. She moved a crash cart 5 feet closer to the restricted corridor. Each change was minor, reasonable, invisible on its own. Together, they formed options. The younger agent watched her again. Longer this time. "What's your name?" he asked. She told him. He repeated it under his breath, committing it to memory. A call came over the hospital intercom. Maintenance, reporting a brief power fluctuation in the lower levels. The lights did not flicker, but several monitors beeped softly in response. She checked them all in sequence, faster than usual now. Outside, one of the unmarked vehicles finally shut off its engine. Her watch ticked. The early warning signs were no longer subtle. They were lining up. She stood at the center of the ward, hands resting lightly on the counter, eyes scanning the corridor as if she were simply waiting for the next task. No one noticed the way she had positioned herself. No one noticed that she now had a clear line of sight to every access point. No one noticed that she was ready. Not yet. The transfer came without announcement. No overhead page. No warning call from administration, just a sudden tightening of the air, like the building itself had braced. She noticed it when the elevators stopped cycling. Normally, at least one car moved every few minutes. Staff, visitors, late admissions. Now the indicator lights above the doors stayed dark. Idle. She checked the time. 2 minutes past midnight. The younger FBI agent stepped away from the wall and spoke quietly into his earpiece. His posture had changed. Less restless. More fixed. The older agent straightened his jacket and nodded once, as if confirming something only he could hear. She watched from across the ward, pretending to review a chart. Then the service elevator chimed, not the public one. The restricted car that opened directly into the secured corridor near rooms 25 and 26. 2 hospital security officers emerged Phi. RST. They looked uncomfortable, hands hovering near radios they rarely used. Behind them came a gurney pushed by a man in plain clothes, followed by another agent and a physician she did not recognize. The patient was restrained, not violently, methodically, soft cuffs at the wrists and ankles, a cardiac monitor clipped to the rail, oxygen cannula in place. He appeared unconscious, but his chest rose too evenly. Medicated, not asleep. She noted the details automatically. Male, late 30s or early 40s. No visible injuries beyond a faint bruise at the temple. Hospital bracelet already applied, but handwritten, not printed, temporary. The gurney stopped outside room 26. "This is as far as we go," the physician said. His voice was tight. "He needs continuous monitoring." The older agent nodded. "We'll handle it." "We?" the doctor asked. The younger agent stepped forward. "Federal custody." The doctor hesitated, then looked past them. To her, she hadn't realized she'd stepped closer. "He needs cardiac telemetry," she said evenly. "And respiratory checks every 15 minutes. We'll have eyes on him," the older agent replied. "Eyes don't replace monitors," she said. There was a pause. A subtle one. "Just long enough to register friction." The doctor cleared his throat. "She's right." The older agent exhaled slowly through his nose. "Fine, but access is limited." She nodded, already moving. Inside room 26, she checked the equipment herself. Monitor leads placed correctly, oxygen flow steady, 4 secure. She adjusted the bed angle by a few degrees, enough to improve airway alignment. The patient did not stir. As she worked, she felt it again, that sense of recognition. The way the cuffs were positioned, the choice of sedative, the decision to move him now at this hour into a civilian hospital instead of a federal facility. This was not routine custody. This was containment. She finished and stepped back. "Vitals stable," she said. "For now." The younger agent stood at the door, arms crossed. "For now," he echoed. Outside, the corridor tightened. Security officers took positions they had never practiced. One stood too close to the door, blocking a clear line of sight. Another lingered near the stairwell, uncertain. She adjusted them without words. "Can you stand 5 feet back?" she said to the first. "You're blocking the crash cart." He moved immediately, grateful for direction. To the second, "If an alarm sounds, you'll want a clear path. Stay here." They obeyed. Not because she outranked them, because she spoke like someone who knew what would happen next. The older agent watched all of it. "Who is he?" a nurse whispered to her as she passed. "Patient," she replied. "Nothing more." She returned to the station. The charge nurse leaned in. "They didn't tell us anything." "They won't," she said. The monitors continued their steady rhythm. The ward appeared calm again, but it was the fragile kind of calm, the kind that existed only because nothing had moved yet. Her watch vibrated once, a silent alert she had set years ago, triggered by timing alone. She looked toward the stairwell, toward the supply corridor, toward room 26. Everything was in place. The arrival had happened. Now the waiting ended. Whatever was coming was already inside. The first confrontation did not sound like one. There were no raised voices, no alarms. Just a quiet disagreement in a hallway that carried more weight than it should have. It began when the younger agent stopped an orderly from entering the restricted corridor. "You can't go in there," he said, stepping into the man's path. "I'm delivering meds," the orderly replied, holding up the tray. "Room 24, not authorized." The orderly looked past him, confused, then saw her standing at the station. She stepped forward. "He's authorized," she said. "That patient needs the dose in 12 minutes. The agent turned to her, irritation flickering. "This area is locked down. For security," she said. "Not for care." The older agent approached, drawn by the exchange. "We'll administer it." She met his gaze. "You don't have access to the medication system." "We have a physician." "Who doesn't know the patient's reactions," she replied. "I do." The corridor went still. The older agent studied her for a long moment. "We're not debating this." "No," she said. "You're delaying treatment." The words were flat, Not accusatory. Factual. He exhaled sharply. You're pushing. I'm preventing a complication, she said, which would become your problem. The orderly shifted his weight, unsure. The younger agent looked between them. Sir, let him through, the older agent said, cutting him off. The orderly moved quickly, relief plain on his face. The older agent turned back to her. You're towing a line. She nodded once. So are you. That earned her a longer look. Not anger, calculation. She returned to her tasks, but the balance had shifted, slightly, enough to be felt. 10 minutes later, a security officer approached her, radio in hand. We're being told to lock the west stairwell again. She looked up. It's already locked. It wasn't, he said. She didn't react. Lock it. Then stand by. Stand by for what? For instructions, she said. He hesitated, then nodded and moved off. She marked the time on her chart. The second hand on her watch swept past 12. At room 26, the patient stirred, just a small movement. Fingers flexing against the restraints, a change in breathing pattern. Subtle but real. She was there before the monitor alarm could sound. She adjusted the sedative drip slightly, within safe parameters. Watched his chest rise and fall until it steadied again. Behind her, she heard footsteps. The younger agent stood in the doorway. You didn't notify us. He didn't cross a threshold, she said. I did. You're making unilateral decisions. I'm keeping him stable. He hesitated. That's not your call. She looked at him then. Really looked. You're guarding a man you don't understand, she said quietly, and you're standing in the middle of a system you don't control. His jaw tightened. And you do. I understand this building, she replied. Better than you. He held her gaze for a moment longer, then stepped aside. The older agent was waiting in the corridor when she exited. We've had enough surprises for one night, he said. I don't like being corrected by staff. She washed her hands at the sink before answering. Then stop creating situations that need correction, she said. Silence followed. A monitor beeped somewhere down the hall. A cart rolled. Life continued. The older agent spoke again, slower now. You're assuming a lot. She dried her hands carefully. So are you. He nodded once. Not agreement. Recognition. From that point on, nothing she did went unnoticed. Agents watched when she moved equipment, when she spoke to staff, when she adjusted positions in the ward. She let them watch, because every change she made now had a reason, and soon those reasons would surface. The first friction had passed. The next would not be so quiet. The moment came without drama. No shout, no gunfire, no sudden rush of bodies through the corridor, just a sound that didn't belong. A soft metallic click echoed from the west stairwell, too precise to be accidental, too deliberate to be ignored. She was already moving when the security alarm finally chirped. Short, clipped, almost apologetic. West stairwell breach, a voice crackled over the radio. The younger agent reacted first, stepping into the corridor, hand near his weapon. Lock it down, he said into his earpiece. Too late. The lights flickered once, not enough to draw panic, but enough to reset several monitors. 2 alarms began to chirp in overlapping rhythms. A patient down the hall called out, confused and afraid. The ward fractured. Staff froze, waiting for direction that didn't come. She stepped to the center of the corridor. Room 21, stay with your patient, she said to one nurse. Respiratory, I need you at 23. Now. They moved immediately. The older agent raised his voice. Everyone stay where you are. Doors now, she said louder, cutting through him. Close and latch. Orderlies reached for handles. Doors slid shut. Curtains followed. The soundscape changed. Fewer voices. Less movement. Contained. From the stairwell came a second sound. Footsteps this time. Measured, not rushed. The breach team was inside. The younger agent spoke rapidly into his radio. We have movement. Possible extraction attempt. The response crackled back, fragmented. Interference. She crossed to the crash cart she had repositioned hours earlier, checked the seal, unlocked it. The older agent watched her. What are you doing? Buying time, she said. The lights flickered again. This time the hallway dimmed for half a second longer. Room 26. The patient's monitor spiked. She was already there. Heart rate climbing, oxygen saturation dropping, sedation destabilizing, intentionally. He's waking him, the younger agent said, arriving behind her. Yes, she replied, on a schedule. She increased oxygen flow, adjusted the drip again, then did something the agents noticed immediately. She disabled the audible alarm. "What are you doing?" the older agent snapped. "Preventing panic," she said. "You want him calm." As if on cue, the patient's eyes fluttered open. "Not fully. Just enough." He focused past her, toward the doorway. That was the tell. "He's signaling," the younger agent said. "No," she replied. "He's listening." From the corridor came a voice, low, controlled, familiar to the patient. "Medical emergency," it called. "We're here to assist." The older agent swore under his breath. "They're using hospital protocol," the younger said. "They've practiced it," she replied. The footsteps drew closer. She stepped out into the corridor, positioning herself between room 26 and the stairwell. The breach team emerged, 2 men in tactical black, moving like they belonged there. No masks, no weapons visible, hands empty, confidence high. "Patients destabilizing," one said smoothly. "We retaking over." The older agent moved to block them. "Federal." She raised a hand, not high, not dramatic, just enough. "Stop," she said. "Everyone did, not because of volume, because of certainty." She looked at the men. "You're off timing." One of them smiled faintly. "Excuse me?" "You came during a monitor reset," she said. "You expected chaos. You didn't get it." The smile faded. Behind her, the younger agent whispered, "Who are you?" She didn't answer. Instead, she turned slightly and spoke into the ward. "Seal the wing," she said. "Now." Doors locked, lights stabilized. Movement ceased. Within minutes, exactly as she had predicted, the ward was secure. The breach had failed, and everyone in that corridor knew it. The ward did not erupt after the breach failed. It narrowed, voices dropped, movement slowed. Everyone seemed to realize at the same time that noise would make things worse. The 2 men from the stairwell stood still, hands visible, eyes no longer confident. They had expected confusion. They had trained for panic. They had not trained for control. She watched them the way a clinician watched unstable vitals, without anger, without fear, only assessment. "Step back," she said to the nearer one. Not loud, not sharp, just clear. He hesitated. The younger FBI agent took a half step forward, then stopped himself. He looked at her instead. The man complied. "Against the wall," she said. "Both of you." They moved, slowly, calculating but obedient. The older agent finally spoke. "You don't have authority to detain anyone." She turned to him. "I'm not detaining them." She gestured to the corridor. "I'm controlling movement in a medical crisis." He opened his mouth to argue. Then he looked around. The wing was sealed. Doors latched. Staff in position. Patients quiet. No alarm sounding, no confusion spreading. Control had already been established. She addressed the staff next. "Respiratory stays with 23, she said. "No exceptions. If oxygen drops, you move first and explain later." The therapist nodded once. "Security," she continued. "You don't engage, you observe. If they move without permission, you block access, not bodies." They shifted their stance, adjusting positions to create barriers without confrontation. The younger agent stared at her now, no longer trying to hide it. "You've done this before," he said. She met his eyes briefly. Different building. She returned to room 26. The patient's vitals were stabilizing again, but his awareness had sharpened. His eyes tracked her, focused, intelligent. "Don't fight it," she said quietly, adjusting the restraints just enough to prevent circulation loss. "You won't win tonight." His lips twitched. "You're not hospital," he murmured. She did not respond. Behind her, the older agent stepped into the room. His voice was lower now. Controlled. "Whatever this is," he said, "you need to explain it." She finished checking the 4 before answering. "In a minute," she said. "When he's stable, that's not acceptable." She looked up then. Fully. "This wing stays functional," she said. "If you disrupt that, you compromise every patient here, including the one you care about most." He held her gaze. She could see the calculation happening. Risk weighed against ego. He nodded once. Outside, one of the restrained men spoke. "You don't understand what you're interfering with." She didn't turn toward him. "I understand timing," she said. "I understand buildings. And I understand that you're out of options." Silence followed. She moved to the nurse's station and picked up a phone. dialed an internal extension from memory. "This is the charge desk," she said calmly. "I need engineering to lock elevator override and reroute power priority to this wing only." The charge nurse blinked. "We can't." "They'll do it," she said. "Tell them it's contamination control." The nurse swallowed and made the call. The older agent watched her closely. "That's not standard procedure." "No," she replied. "It's effective." Within moments, the elevator indicator lights went dark again. The hum of the building shifted, barely perceptible. The ward had become an island. She addressed the agents one last time. "You can regain command when this ends," she said. "Until then, you follow my instructions, or you create casualties, no threat, no bravado, just consequence." The older agent looked at the sealed doors, at the restrained men, at the stabilized monitors. Then he gave a small nod. "Tell us what you need," he said. The shift was complete. Authority had not been declared. It had been accepted. The cost arrived quietly. No alarms, no raised voices, just a change in numbers that should not have changed. Room 23. The respiratory therapist looked up from the monitor, confusion tightening her face. "Oxygen saturation's dropping," she said, slowly. She was already moving. The ventilator hissed softly, steady but no longer sufficient. The patient's chest rose with effort now, not rhythm. "How long?" she asked. 2 minutes, the therapist replied. "Maybe tea?" She checked the settings. Everything was correct. The problem wasn't the machine. It was access. The rerouted power, the sealed wing, the locked elevators. Everything that had stabilized the situation had narrowed margins elsewhere. She had known this would happen, had counted on it being later. She turned to the older agent. "I need the west stairwell open." His jaw tightened. "That's where they came through." "I know," she said. "I also know respiratory backup is 2 floors down." He hesitated. "If we open it, we risk movement," she finished. "If we don't, we lose the patient." The younger agent watched the numbers drop. 91. 89. The patient coughed weakly against the tube. The older agent looked at the restrained men in the corridor, then at the sealed doors, then back at her. "You're asking me to compromise containment," he said. "I'm telling you the cost of keeping it," she replied. For the first time that night, the weight was visible on her face. Not fear, responsibility. The agent keyed his radio. "Open the west stairwell," he said. 1 minute only." She nodded once. "No thanks. Security," she said, already moving. "You take positions here and here. You don't chase. You block." They moved. The stairwell door unlocked with a dull click. She counted silently. 10 seconds. Respiratory burst through, pushing equipment, breath tight, eyes focused. They moved straight to room 23 without slowing. She closed the door behind them herself. Relocked it. 20 seconds. From the corridor came a sound she'd been waiting for. Movement. One of the restrained men shifted his weight, testing. The other glanced toward the stairwell door. "Calcula." Ting. She stepped into their line of sight. "No," she said. That was all. The word carried more weight than any threat. They stopped. Inside room 23, the numbers climbed again, slowly. 88, 90, 92. The therapist exhaled. "We're good." She stayed until the line stabilized, until the breathing eased. Only then did she step back. The older agent stood a few feet away, watching her with something new in his expression. Understanding. "You knew that would happen," he said quietly. "Yes. And you still did it." "Yes. Why?" She considered the question, not because she needed time. The answer mattered. "Because control that costs lives isn't control," she said. "It's failure." He nodded slowly. The ward settled again, but something had changed. The people watching her now understood that her authority wasn't about command. It was about choosing what to risk and what not to. She returned to the nurse's station, picked up her clipboard and resumed charting. Her hand trembled once before it steadied. No one commented. The cost had been paid. By the time the next move came, the ward was ready for it. Not because anyone had been warned, because the space itself had been shaped, corridors cleared, doors positioned, staff aligned into quiet roles they now understood, without being told. Containment does not announce itself. It settles. The restrained men exchanged a look, subtle, almost imperceptible. The kind that assumed chaos would return if they waited long enough. It didn't. The younger FBI agent noticed the look and shifted his stance. blocking their line of sight to the stairwell without stepping closer. No escalation, just geometry, 10. F. The men spoke. You're delaying the inevitable. She didn't turn toward him. You already missed it, she said. The older agent frowned. Missed what? She checked her watch. Your extraction window. As if on cue, a low vibration passed through the floor, felt more than heard. Somewhere below, a heavy door sealed. Then another, engineering doing exactly what she had anticipated. The man's jaw tightened. That wasn't part of the plan. No, she replied. It was part of mine. The patient in room 26 stirred again. This time, not from sedation changes, but frustration. His breathing grew uneven. She entered the room alone. You're done, she said quietly, adjusting the 4 one final time. Your people won't reach you without casualties. And they won't accept that. His eyes locked onto hers, sharp, appraising. Who are you? He asked. She leaned in just enough for him to hear her. Not your exit. Outside, the younger agent received a message on his device. His eyes widened slightly. He showed it to the older agent. They've pulled back, he said. External assets are disengaging. The older agent looked toward the sealed wing. Then at her. You boxed them in, he said. I narrowed options, she replied. They chose. The restrained men sagged slightly, the fight draining out of them, not because they were beaten, but because they understood probability. Security arrived in greater numbers now, coordinated, confident, not rushing, not loud. She oversaw the transfer of custody without standing at the center of it. She corrected hand placement once, adjusted spacing. Nothing more. The ward never lost its rhythm. When the men were finally escorted out through a defer, NT route, one she had quietly suggested, the corridor felt wider again, lighter. The older agent approached her one last time. You could have taken command openly, he said. Why didn't you? She looked past him, toward a patient room where a monitor beeped steadily. Because the work still needed doing, she said. He nodded. No more questions. She returned to her rounds. The ward was secure, not locked down, held. The ward did not celebrate. There was no release of tension in raised voices or nervous laughter. No one leaned against a wall and let themselves shake. The work resumed the way it always did, quietly, deliberately, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. That was how hospitals survive nights like this. She stood at the sink, washing her hands for the 3rd time in 10 minutes. The water was warm, the routine familiar. Scrub, rinse, dry, reset. Behind her, the younger FBI agent waited without speaking. When she finished, she turned, already knowing what he would ask. They're asking questions upstairs, he said, carefully. But they're asking. She nodded. They should. They want a report. They'll get one, she replied. From you, he frowned. From me. You were in charge, she said. On paper. He understood then. Not the whole picture, but enough. What about you, he asked. She clipped her pen back into her pocket. Left side. Same place. I'm on shift, she said. Down the hall, the older agent spoke quietly with hospital administration. There was no confrontation, no raised voices, just controlled language and careful omissions. She caught fragments as she passed. Contained internally, medical leadership acted appropriately. No need to escalate. E. The narrative was already forming. Clean, manageable, incomplete, exactly what everyone needed. Room 23's patient was stable, breathing easier now. She adjusted the blankets and checked the chart. You did good, the respiratory therapist murmured. She nodded once. Nothing more. At room 26, federal personnel took over fully. New agents, different posture, less tension. The patient avoided her eyes as they transferred him. Good, she thought. He understood now. In the corridor, the older agent waited. I never got your full name, he said. She gave it to him. He repeated it once, committing it to memory, then paused. You won't be mentioned, he said. Not officially. She met his gaze. That's fine. It's not how this usually works. It is for me. He studied her face, searching for something. Pride, resentment, expectation. He found none of it, just fatigue. If this happens again, he said carefully, we'd like to know. She considered that. If it happens again, she replied, you'll already be too late. He gave a short, quiet laugh. Not amusement. Recognition. He offered his hand. She did not take it. Instead, she nodded once and walked past him, back toward the nurse's station. Paperwork waited. Medications needed documenting, shift reports to prepare. The ward had been secured, but morning was coming, and morning always brought scrutiny. She preferred nights. Morning arrived without ceremony. The light crept in through narrow windows at the far end of the corridor, thin and pale, flattening the shadows the night had carved into the walls. The fluorescent lights dimmed automatically, surrendering control back to daylight. She stood at the nurse's station, finishing her shift report. Her voice was even, measured. She listed vitals, medication changes, overnight incidents, nothing embellished, nothing hidden. When she reached the section marked security disruption, she paused for half a second, then wrote a single sentence. Temporary access restrictions implemented. No patient loss. That was all. The day shift nurse skimmed the page, nodded, and moved on. There were always nights like this, she assumed, not worth dwelling on. Down the hall, housekeeping began its slow work. Trash bags replaced, floors wiped clean, the physical evidence of the night erased with quiet efficiency. Room 23's patient slept peacefully now, color improved, breathing steady. She adjusted the blanket one last time and checked the monitor out of habit. Room 26 was empty. The bed had already been stripped. No restraints, no federal presence, just another room waiting for its next occupant. She felt the absence like a bruise you only notice when you press on it. At the elevator, the younger FBI agent stood alone. His jacket was gone, tie loosened. The tension that had defined him all night finally beginning to ease. "They're calling it contained," he said softly. "Minimal exposure." She nodded. "They won't come back here," he added. "Not for this." "Good," she replied. He hesitated. "You saved lives." She pressed the elevator button. "That's the job." The doors opened. She stepped inside. As they closed, he spoke again. "Whatever you were before this." She met his eyes one last time. "I'm a nurse," she said. The doors slid shut. Outside, the hospital parking lot was filling with cars, families arriving, staff changing shifts, a normal morning beginning, on schedule. She walked to her car without looking back at the building. At home, she placed her badge on the counter, washed her hands, and sat for a moment in the quiet kitchen. The adrenaline drained slowly, leaving only weight. Later, when she returned for her next shift, no one mentioned the FBI. No one asked questions. No one treated her differently. She checked her assignment, tied her hair back, clipped her badge in place, and stepped into the ward. Monitors beeped. 4 pumps clicked. The hospital breathed. She took her place inside it, unremarkable, unnoticed, exactly where she needed to be.